One of our long-time customers, Chinese customers, she's maybe in her 60s, 65 or something like that. I think she's got a crush on me. Been coming to us for years, always asking if Thomas is here. Guess what she brought for me today? Chinese New Year, you know, but for the shop, but mainly for me.
Timing belt water pump, almost 10 years ago. Well, let's say 9 for sure. December 09. Still looked good, everything was looking fine. I'm gonna have to see how many kilometers they did since then. It was done at 63,000. I think it's definitely over 100 some odd thousand at this point. Sometimes the problem is not a MAF sensor. Sometimes it's the wiring. No! Chemtrails are real. They're even putting it in gasoline now. Chemicals everywhere. Chemtrails. Oh my God. Where is it? If it bleeds, I can kill it. ALHTDI PCV tube, a breather tube. Coworker snapped the end piece here. It's supposed to have these little I don't know what you want to call them, locking tabs, I guess. And you're supposed to squeeze the two ends to spread the legs, so to speak. But this is the new one. This is so stiff. I don't even want to dare push this thing too hard. Euro parts must be good quality, but scary how tight that is. I'm gonna let my coworker install it and snap it. BEW Jetta in for a oil change. I always get in the habit of checking the fuel pump current ramp. Let me just zoom out some more. There's only one good spot here on this pump. Sorry about the LED or the flash here. Let me just change the scale here. There's just one hump here. Depending on where I actually had to bang the bottom of the gas tank to get it started, to get it to spin, but depending on where it stops, if it stops right here, it's not going to start again, and these BEWs will run fine with the transfer pump not working. So it's a good idea to check them, because eventually you're going to have a no start because it lost prime, Optimus Prime. Happy Valentine, you little sexy thing. Who's a little dirty girl? Oh, you are. Yes, you are. Oh, look at all that dirt. Somebody's gonna need a spanking and a cleaning. Happy Valentine, little one. Contitech timing belt, 9 years old, 50,000 miles. That's 70 some odd thousand kilometers. Gates Racing Performance timing belt. We'll see. Stay tuned. Customer complained, rubber burning smell and a squealing sound. Yeah, that'll do it. Tensioner roller is shot. Backup light switch for a 5-speed transmission. Here you can see the wiring still attached. Sometimes they break along here. and the wiring just goes into this wiring loom here that's secured via this plastic bracket that's mounted to the starter bolt hole here. So if you can't see the wires, just look for them in between here somewhere. I don't know where they are on your car because I can't see it. Send me pictures like I asked for. Same with inside the car, the two plugs you were talking about. If I can't see it, I don't know what you're talking about. Fuel sample from a filter that I installed last year, March of 2018. This time around the fuel pump went. The car came in for a no start. We tapped on the gas tank and got the car running, so there's obviously a dead spot on the pump. Confirmed via scope, but this is the dirt. I just shook it. I just shook the filter and I just drained it back out in reverse flow, and that's the sample that I got. I'm gonna let it sit overnight, see what happens. One day later, you can see all the dirt settled. Just as proof. Magic. Change those fuel filters. 5 years, 100,000 kilometers. That's what you want to see come out of a 1.8 turbo engine. Rusty coolant. Holy crap. I need a bigger catch tray. Nice and rusty. I didn't let it sit long enough. The rust didn't settle. The whole thing would have been covered in rust. If you're filling the coolant level or the coolant system, the reservoir, and the fluid doesn't go down, sometimes you have to create an opening to let the air out. Coolant went down now because air is coming out here. Keep topping up until you get coolant coming out, then you can put the sensor back in. If you don't have a sensor there, then obviously disconnect the hose, disconnect any other coolant hose that you can easily get at to burp the system. Some coolant return hoses have restrictors that are inside the hose. The way you can tell is just by squeezing the hose, and if you feel a hard spot or a lumpy spot, that's probably the restrictor. You can see here there's a nice opening on this end, but there's no opening on this end. It's just restricted or plugged up over time, and that prevents air from getting into the reservoir bottle. Air from the engine going through here into the reservoir bottle. So what I ended up doing is I just cut the hose off, and I was able to reroute the hose without this restrictor. It's not really needed. All it does is it slows down the air, the coolant flow back into the coolant reservoir. I'd rather have good flow than have this thing plug up and then have no flow. When it plugs up with the full cooling system full, that's not an issue. The problem is when it comes time to bleed it. Whenever you drain the system and then fill it, air will get trapped because this guy here is plugged. Rusty cooling system. Camera angle is going to change. Sorry, I'm going to go nice and slow. Clean the thermostat area nicely. You can see the rusty coolant. Over on this side you can see that metal pipe. It's all rusty. That metal pipe runs along here, runs along underneath the coolant flange on this side, and it meets the heater core hose up here. That's the bypass. So when the engine is started cold, the thermostat is closed, coolant circulates through that pipe over to the water pump and the heater core, obviously. But in this case here, like I said, the thermostat flange, that was all rusted. Or I didn't say that earlier, but that's the reason why we're replacing it. There was coolant dripping out from under the flange, collecting here, similar as to what you see there. And this all started after a cooling system flush. This is actually the one I replaced the the metal pipe on. That's right there. And the reason that the thermostat started to leak afterwards is because the coolant is now thinner. It was really rusty when I first started working on it, and thinner coolant can now penetrate better, and that's why it's leaking. So this is a comeback of sorts, but you know, you have to explain to customers with how rusty this vehicle is. This is not going to be the only issue they're going to have. There's going to be more. That pipe is going to go, a bunch of other stuff. 1 second. This is a piece of rust that came out of the thermostat housing area inside the engine. So this is a total rust bucket. I don't know, you know, ended up buying it without having a purchase inspection done. Yeah, you know, I'm lost for words. I don't know, you know, and they always blame the mechanics. My headlights don't work. It's not the bulbs, I just replaced them. Okay. Surprised you didn't notice this. It's a leak. That's the third Golf in a row, and they're all silver in color. This one, customer said that the car was rattling, and then sort of came to a stop, I think. So I'm turning the engine. You can see the alternator is moving. Notice the mark here. Oh, actually, here you can see it. So I'm moving the crankshaft, but the timing belt's not moving. So they heard a rattling sound, most likely the engine seized up, or the camshaft seized up, and then the timing belt stripped. Here's a good example of caliper slider bushings, how the rust builds up between the caliper and the bushing, and then that rust squeezes the bushing and prevents the slider from moving correctly. You can see this one looks pretty good. This one's all rusty. This is the rusty bushing. This is the other one. So whenever you do your brakes, make sure that the outside of the bushing is clean, not just the inside. The inside obviously needs to be lubricated. Slider pins themselves need to be clean. But this is just as important. Always check that. Tomorrow is March. Thank you, Worth Canada. Gonna be a good month.